This is Nuclear Heat, live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America, bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Oh, yes, it is time for Nuclear Heat here on 93.7 The Ticket. Happy to be with you guys here to talk some pro wrestling. It's always a good time to talk some pro wrestling, but we've had kind of a good week here at The Ticket, so we're just going to keep going here as I think things are heating up going into WrestleMania. Again, we'll get into some of the details here, but Augie is my tag team partner as usual. Joining me here tonight, Augie, how's it going? How's the wrestling been?
Oh, it's going pretty good. Like you said, it's some storylines are really heating up, so that's pretty exciting. And some good TV time and all that. So excited to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, should be a fun show. Again, like I said, it's been kind of fun in the world of wrestling here at 93.7 The Ticket. Even today, DP had Henry O. Godwin on, who was a mid-late 90s WWF wrestler. So he talked a little bit about his battles with folks such as Triple H. Even said he battled him, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, when he was in Omaha. I think it was Omaha, or maybe Lincoln here at one time. So that was pretty cool. With AEW coming up, coming to Omaha, Adam Carricker should have the Outrunners on. We were planning to have them on at some point. Their names are Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd.
Nice.
So some pretty good wrestling names there, kind of like 80s wrestlers in AEW. And again, Liberty First Credit Union Arena, Omaha on Wednesday. We'll have AEW in town. Tony Storm will be there. John Moxley versus Cope. Adam Copeland, Edge, of course, in WWE language, I suppose. Ready to do a street fight there for a championship. So it should be a good time. I mentioned Tony Storm. Sounds like there might be a storm, though, as well, which might prevent a bigger crowd. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we get Monday, it's tomorrow. It's supposed to be 82. And then on Wednesday, we're in a winter weather advisory for a blizzard. So that's Nebraska for you in the middle of March. So I hope not, because, if we get the opportunity to see something, we don't follow AEW. I think that'd be pretty cool to see some of these guys, and women that I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, it's good to jump back in there. I mean, Ricochet, some of them go by different names over there, but there are plenty of former Bobby Lashes over there with the whole group, basically, from back in WWE days. So they've got some fun former WWE talent and some fun talent that hasn't made it to WWE someday that might make it. Of course, the whole Cody Rhodes thing, I think that's kind of lost or forgotten, or just kind of maybe we're all past that. But the whole Cody Rhodes thing was really jump started by him starting AEW and going and help and produce that and making a name from outside of WWE. And now look what's happened with Cody Rhodes the last couple of years. AEW, I don't know how has gotten the rub for it, though, because, they just at times we'll see what happens. I mean, it's just tough to compete with WWE is one thing.
Yeah. And it is tough because, and like CM Punk, CM Punk went to AEW and then jumped to the WWE. And of course, he's a megastar kind of without that, though. His return was going to be great. But then you look at it, a lot of guys, kind of go back and forth and it doesn't rub off, like you said, as much as like a Cody or a CM Punk. It's kind of like you get released from the WWE, you go straight to AEW, you get released from AEW, you go back to the WWE. It's one of those funny things, but there are a lot of talent on that AEW roster that I wish were on, a WWE, like John Moxley, Dean Ambrose. Oh, imagine if he could come back, and we've been talking about that, a Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, the Shield can finally have like their, kind of just face off, after all these years. I think that'd be amazing. Tony Storm was someone who never really got her times. I heard she was great in NXT and had a little bit of a run as like a mid-carder, I'd say, on the main roster, but I heard she's been doing some great things there. And of course, you got Sasha Banks down there doing her appearance as someone we've, that just walked out and, we've kind of wish would come back every once in a while. So, maybe they'll, from what rumors say, AEW is maybe not doing as good as they're hoping. So, who knows when these guys will maybe be back in on the WWE.
Yeah, it's funny because I was asked recently about, kind of booking your perfect WrestleMania. I think that triple threat for the Shield at some point after all these years would be, I think everybody's fantasy, like actual realistic type of matches. Of course, you could have your matches. Like I'd love to see Ric Flair and John Cena fight for the 17th title, but at this time, it probably wouldn't be that good of a fight.
Yeah.
Just because of course, some of the age, the ages involved there. Though I do hope to still see Ric Flair get involved in whatever it is at some point here. And he did tweet, I think, at Cody at one point in time and said, or at John Cena, actually, I think, and said that he was going to stop him. So maybe we'll see some involvement there. But yeah, that triple threat would be incredible. It looks like we're getting something close to that.
Yeah.
You just throw CM Punk in there instead of Dean Ambrose. But the question would always be, would you bring back the Moxley or the Ambrose character? He doesn't really look like the Ambrose character anymore.
Yeah.
Would you do the Moxley music? I don't know.
I think you'd have to go with the Moxley just because that's kind of been his over character. With Dean Ambrose, I mean, he still had a WWE title run. I think he got the US title too with it and had some big feuds. But towards the end there, that Dean Ambrose character, I just don't think was really working out. It's kind of too unhinged, too cartoony. And, the Moxley character, I think that just really fits him a little bit more. It's a little bit more serious. I know he's still got like that cartooniness to him, but it just feels more serious. And if you bring that in with Seth Rollins, who's already kind of a very big characteristic, and of course, Roman Reigns, who's just serious, the big dog, you've kind of got the trifecta of characters there.
Yeah, it would, which made the group so good back in the day, even. So it would be fun. Hopefully, at some point, we do get to see that. But I do think they've been doing a good job. When we'll talk about several of the feuds, but that was one of them this week where we had all these kind of questions and kind of loose ends. And with that one specifically, I was kind of thinking, well, I'd kind of just rather see Rollins and Punk. I don't know if Reigns has to be involved, but what they did makes it kind of interesting. I think they furthered along certainly Charlotte. And Tiffy time this week. I think they further along Io Sky in the triple threat that's moving on there. So this week, while it wasn't maybe like a week of wrestling that's going to go down in history, it really did a lot to kind of set up the WrestleMania. And there was a lot of loose ends that, remember, without the big storyline that would happen there with John Cena, we were all kind of thinking, and we'd said it quite a bit. I just don't know if a lot of this feels WrestleMania worthy. Yeah. How are they going to make it feel WrestleMania worthy? And they're doing so, I think, with a lot of their programming.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a good job with it. Some of them are a little bit of a slow burn, but now we're a month away from WrestleMania. First off, I'm going to say, why would they schedule it on Easter? That's kind of the big thing. I'll say Easter Sunday. Come on, that's tough there. But other than that, yeah, 4 months away, and I'm excited. We get John Cena tomorrow. He's going to be there because they're in Germany.
Yeah, they're doing the European trip.
Yeah,
I can't
they're there for like a month or something like that. It's pretty much they're there until WrestleMania.
Which is a great idea, by the way. And I don't know if they've done this too much in the past, but they found out that those overseas crowds are wild. Like, they're really exciting. Yeah. It's like the TV product is really good because those crowds really get into it. And so to do that right heating up into WrestleMania, I think is perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm sure that was planned. And, I just, whoever, was kind of put that together, I give them props because I think it's going to make the product feel as hot as you can going into WrestleMania. Though I will say that crowd that we did have for SmackDown in Barcelona, they opened up hot and then they cooled off pretty quickly. So it's not going to work every time with any building you go into, but generally the overseas crowds are pretty into it.
Yeah, and I'd say it's because I'd say SmackDown was kind of like a up and down, right? You had some segments that were pretty good, to invest in, but then there were some where you were just kind of like, okay, this is kind of just they're falling into SmackDown is 3 hours and they're kind of running into that problem of filling it, with great products. I feel like this week maybe Raw had the stronger showing.
Yeah.
Raw has a more star power, and then that ending was great. That was great storytelling in there. So I think I'd have to give that one to Raw.
Well, and as cool as it is to have SmackDown in Barcelona and have that overseas crowd, Raw was at Madison Square Garden. So that's kind of the mecca of basically anything to go and be at and have a show there. So that definitely did not disappoint either. Let's go ahead and jump into, we'll start with Raw and then get to SmackDown. Just go ahead and do it in chronological order. But again, here we started off, the whole idea for this match was not only that it was going to be Raw in Madison Square Garden, it was a steel cage match between Rollins and CM Punk. Which I had mentioned earlier, that could be at WrestleMania. That's what I would not have any problem with that exact match being at WrestleMania. So that was kind of a big draw here, but we knew with the backstory of, okay, there's probably going to be some interference here. Again, that probably helped sell you some tickets too, because everybody wants to see what's going to happen with Roman Reigns. And if he's going to come back, this looks like a time to do so, only because if you book somebody to win it like aggressively, it'd be kind of interesting to how to, you know, make that up and make it interesting again for WrestleMania.
Yeah, and to kind of further that, I think they've really been teasing this Rollins Punk thing, right, for years. I mean, they had the real life beef and all that stuff. They've been kind of going back and forth for over 10 years. This helps to where if, let's say, injuries were to happen to another storyline, you've never got that CM Punk Rollins at WrestleMania. This could be next year, something like that. But yeah, I mean, the setup, that it was going to be in a steel cage, Madison Square Garden. I mean, I was excited for it. I was just, had my Netflix on. I was like, I'm going to watch this whole thing. I was like, I know they say it's going to be the main event, but you never know with Raw, when it is, because we don't know how long Raw is right now. They kind of go between like an hour and a half to 2 hours. But yeah, I was glued to my TV, just kind of ready for that segment to happen.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, because the movement to Raw has brought about a little bit more pressure, maybe with the global audience and Netflix to really deliver on that product. So for years we've kind of known Raw as the A show.
Yeah,
SmackDown went to Fox; they kind of became the A show. Feels like Raw is back into that territory again here, with again the worldwide audience, and they really are putting together some pretty good programming for each of these shows, as in, like you said, matches that otherwise might be held back or reserved for premium live events or kind of big shows. I think and they've been doing it for a couple months now. I think there's maybe one or two Raw that have felt like maybe a normal broadcast cable TV Raws, but the other ones have been, had some marquees to them.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember a lot, but like when we were growing up, like in the early 2000s, even later to the end of it there, they had like key name matches on a lot of it. They kind of went away from that to really reserve it in the last year for like the premium live events on there. I will say the only thing I'm kind of a little disappointed, and I found out they're starting to bleep out a lot of things on Raw. And it comes to find out it's WWE doing it, not Netflix.
Yeah.
So they're deciding to I think they kind of were teasing, kind of gauging how what can we kind of do, and maybe they realize, hey, this new Netflix audience might be a little bit younger for us, opening up some eyes. So they got to bleep out some of those curse words and some of those things that are happening. I found it a little weird when it happened on Monday, just because I was starting to get used to all those those words dropping and kind of some things going on, and then they kind of just bleeped it out or went away from things. I was like, that's a little bit different again.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's a whole balance that you have to do. I mean, I think there's a whole the internet wrestling community obviously loves that sort of stuff. I mean, we all understand what wrestling is and just play along and have fun with it. But at the same time, there is a lot of that's part for wrestling, and it's cool to see kids have their kind of wrestling moments and heroes, and so you do want to run a fine balance. I always thought with on USA Network, I think they give you a little bit more leniency once it's past 9 to do that a little bit more. I always thought they could have went with kind of like a, hey, once 9 turns on, it's adult wrestling. And from 7 to 8, 7 and 8 hours can be, keep the kids around. But it's a delicate balance that they have to do. And I would say that I was kind of, I'm a recent father of, my son. I guess he's been, he's having his 4th birthday pretty soon. But it's just the way that I look at it now, because I used to be like, yeah, I want more more violence, more cursing, more real life story, and now as a father, it's kind of like, yeah, but I kind of want my son to be able to watch too.
Yeah. How funny would it be if like we'd get in trouble at school for doing the DX?
Everybody
would.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't do that anymore. How funny would that be if your son just went up to you and was like, hey, Dad, hit you with that, and you're like, all right, we gotta kind of aim it down there. Yeah, that's hilarious. So, and it makes sense. Like we said, they've cut it down, so Raw ends like at 8:30 now. A little bit there, so you do have more eyes on it, so it makes sense. And we've talked about it before. You do it too much, you kind of lose some of that. Somebody did that. To whereas if you have it like once a month or at premium live events, everybody's like, oh, Randy Orton just did the Burge, or something like that, and it makes it a little bit more special.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, they've throughout their time, and it's always been an interesting, delicate balance. They'd have at times they would overuse the B word, and every feud would have the B word in it. So you'd be like, well, just again, like you said, it just doesn't mean as much if everybody's doing it. And so it's an interesting thing to follow and see kind of how WWE will adjust and try to feel out this Netflix era, like you were saying there. Let's go with the open here. Jey Uso against Grayson Waller. This was set up last week. Uso, of course, over with Madison Square Garden. So if you're over with Madison Square Garden, you're probably pretty good in just about any arena. But Uso then fights off Waller and Austin Theory, who was there ringside and used a spear for the win. I'll always call it the weakest spear in the game.
Yep.
Again, just not a move that I know he's supposedly borrowed it from Roman Reigns, learned it. But guys, it's not. I mean, you don't have to go for years of training to learn the spear. But the deal behind the spear is it needs to be a big object coming at you and just devastating you.
Yep.
He just does not have that in him.
I bet you 11-year-old me was delivering better spears than Jey Uso was delivering. And I know, they go off for safety and all that stuff, but man, come on.
Yeah.
Every time I see that, I'm like, how is that his finisher? He's, like you said, I mean, we got to start giving him the respect. He's so over with the crowd,
Yeah.
So I'm now starting to come down to terms of that, but man, the spear, the super kick, he has to super kick you like 20,000 times for it to do anything. And then it just doesn't work. And it seems like he's been doing it now for like a year and a half and he hasn't gotten better. It's like he misses, it's like he's not doing with his shoulder. He's doing it with his arm and
kind of leans into it.
It just doesn't look great there. So yeah, maybe, in another year and a half, he'll finally be able to deliver a good spear.
But either way, I mean, like I said, it's partially the Braun Breaker Goldberg. Like these guys are running at you. These are big, giant athletes. That's just not what Jey Uso is. He's high flying. He's been one of the best tag team, wrestlers in history. So give the man his flowers. But the spear's not it.
No, it's not. And this is, to me, no disrespect to Jey Uso, but I've got about the same body type as he does. And for him being a professional wrestler delivering a spear, that makes sense in there as to, like you said, Braun Breaker, they're like 6'5", 240 guys. Jey Uso's probably 6 foot, 230, 220, 218. That, it'd be like Rey Mysterio, not to this point, but Rey Mysterio or Finn Balor trying to deliver a spear. And it's like, that's unbelievable there.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, they apparently haven't bothered them so far. They keep writing the spear in for it. But in any case, 8 Down Under didn't wait long after the match to attack. Eventually, Jey Uso gets the better of him, but Gunther gets a choke from behind to close the segment. Of course, this is the second time they've done that, certainly setting up the WrestleMania moment when Gunther applies it, and will he be able to escape it at some point? And I'm sure he will and win the title. And that's my guess there. Maybe we'll get something different. Maybe we'll see Gunther get the win, but it seems to be Gunther is the sacrificial lamb at WrestleMania recently.
And I don't think they're building that up as great, because the only times they've ever had interactions, Gunther is dominating. And we kind of talk about this, you can do so much of somebody losing, somebody, being dominated by somebody so much, and then it pays off at the end. I think the issue with Jey Uso winning is everybody was kind of like, he doesn't stack up to any of these champions, right? So, and I know, spoiler alert for everybody, we know this is scripted, we know this isn't real, but you still got to, we talk about the believability of it sometimes, right? And if Jey Uso is going against, Grayson Waller, things like that, and then getting, come from behind, and Gunther's doing this, and he's kind of looked weak against Gunther the last couple weeks. You should be doing the opposite. You should be really getting him into the spirit of it. He's coming out on top of Gunther, but instead they've kind of got him in the background with American or Alpha Academy too. And that has you thinking like they're not really surrounding him with the best talent. If this is supposed to be a guy that's supposed to get a WrestleMania event moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, every time he comes out, any doubts I have about the storyline or anything, with this character, is shown to me that he's over. The crowd loves it. But again, it all doesn't quite fit into what I would have booked. But that's okay. Jey Uso does get the win. Do you think that Gunther, at least what I have liked about building this, not necessarily feud, but they at least are building Gunther lately? He's at least getting some wins over the last couple of weeks outside of Jey Uso. And most of the time it was Axiom this last week. I mean, like you said, he's kind of been in with Alpha Academy, both those members. And, I think each of those, in each case, the opposite wrestler is providing more of a challenge than Gunther sees coming, but he eventually gets the win and looks powerful doing so. So I think, like we said, throughout the year, they booked him to kind of be questioning himself, which was probably not a good way to go to build up your champion. And now they're kind of restoring that a little bit, at least. Yeah,
I think it's all right. Like we said, they're not super impressive wins. They're like, he almost lost to Otis. I mean, he did dominate Kira Tosawa, and then Axiom, he handled him. pretty well there. But I think we talked about it. Gunther hasn't been built up great with this championship, and I think he needed for this WrestleMania season somebody that could help give him a rub. I didn't think that was Jey Uso, and I'm still not as convinced as Jey Uso. But to me, we talk about Jey possibly winning at WrestleMania. I think Gunther needs it a little bit more, just because, like we said, his Intercontinental Championship run was amazing, one of the greatest of all time. It was like, who's going to dethrone him? It was Sami Zayn. Talk about a dud on who's going to dethrone him. We were a little disappointed there. He gets it, not really doing much. Loses to Cody, the confidence thing. Now he's winning again, but his opponent is Jey Uso. I don't know. I just can't get over the fact that, like I said, this is somebody that needs, this WrestleMania win, needed a great feud. You bring in the most over guy, but it's not doing it in the ring, and so that just makes you worry. I honestly think Gunther needs this more than Jey Uso does.
Well, that's interesting. It is. You definitely could make that argument because they can't have him be, again, the sacrificial lamb every year, or you build him up all year, and then we go, okay, well, we know what's going to happen. Although I do say that Drew McIntyre has fallen into that category. I still love Drew McIntyre, but he's excellent on the mic. I mean, he's probably just overall, I would say, in no disrespect to Gunther, he's obviously the world champ, but I think Drew McIntyre is one of the best in the world. So I just think overall he maybe can get away with some things that maybe they can't do with Gunther.
And I think, on Drew McIntyre's thing, he's slayed the beast. He's done things like that. We look at Gunther. Who has he beat? Who, what feud did he come out other than outside of his Intercontinental Championship? Feud with Cody, he lost. Feud with Sammy, he ended up losing one of those. It's like his two big feuds, and with this title didn't do much. And at least Drew McIntyre I know it was during COVID, but he at least had a decent reign. Like I said, he got it by beating Brock Lesnar, and then he beat the Big Show. He did certain things like that to kind of give himself some credibility. And with Gunther, he still looked at kind of an up-and-comer that, even though he's a world champ, needs, more of those. And that's why I say I think he needs it more than Jey does, because if he loses it, he can still be a dominating force, but he's not going to be in the John Cena, feuds. I don't think so, at least. I don't think it'd be that. Where would you really turn with it? Whereas if he beats Jey and he's still champion, we got teased of a CM Punk Gunther feud before, right? For that title. Yeah. Boom, you could turn around and that's
teased Gunther and Goldberg.
Time. I mean, you can turn around and have that as your SummerSlam, right? Have him hold it, kind of have a longer feud with that. That'd be great. He loses that. You kind of don't care about a CM Punk feud or a Goldberg feud if he doesn't have that title.
Yeah, it's interesting because then that's what makes the whole setup interesting, is because it does feel like everybody, we talk about the Goldberg booking when he was in WCW, 150 matches in a row, or 264, whatever it was. He was that's great. I mean, that's great for anybody's character, but what can you do if you're not winning? Oftentimes will help you. And so Gunther's just an interesting story because they throw the statistics out there. I think he's been champion like 85% of the time he's been on the roster because of that Intercontinental title run. But what do they do if he's not winning championships? Like, what would be the next thing? And why would I hate to say it, but why would you build him up? Or, this is the guy. Not everybody can have that, untouchable storyline. Why do you build him up and then hand these off to Sami Zayn and Jey Uso? Is an interesting question to me, just because I feel like those guys have a little bit of a ceiling just as far as the top of the card.
Yeah, and we talked about it too here, though. The biggest thing the WWE did against themselves was that King of the Ring or crown, whatever it was, the crown jewel. They didn't have to do the champion versus champion. We talked about it. Someone was going to come out looking weak. You look at it, the two champions that lost, Nia Jax, she came out weak. That kind of lessened her feud with Tiffany. She lost her title. Gunther, we talked about it, has been lost since then. That's there. And you talk about it with Jey Uso. Yeah, his ceiling is great WrestleMania moment. Would you turn around and do a Zack Ryder type of thing on him as he loses it the next night to Gunther? Because, he's not a guy that can carry this company. He's, great. The fans are hyped about his entrance, but you can't tell me they're excited about the product he puts in the ring, because he is not, I'm sorry, he's not a great wrestler. That's the thing.
Well, I'll say this. I've been wrong before. I didn't think that Cody had the staying power that he does. And now Cody's been able to, use this momentum to turn The Rock and John Cena heel. So, I mean, it's just kind of some all-time stuff that helps with that storyline. And the key thing to remember is Jay's very much in that storyline. So whenever they're done building up Jay, if they can put that right back into the bloodline and Roman, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that's still to work out in the bloodline. And if they put Jay over a little bit more, then he's going to feel like a bigger character in it again.
Yeah, and you say that, and it's perfect because I think 2 years ago when the whole bloodline were still together, but they're kind of crumbling, Roman Reigns said to Jay, "You're next in line.
Yeah.
I wanted you to be, you carry the mantle." So it does fall in there. And then I'll go back on your Cody statement here. We talked about it. We thought Cody's reign was kind of dull. It takes Roman Reigns, John Cena, The Rock being in his storylines to bring that up. And I'm not saying he's bad. He's still one of the most over, champions. I mean, he is. He's the top dog, but it takes those others being in his storyline to get it because Solo wasn't there. Kevin Owens, great feud. I don't even remember who he wrestled, for the rest of the time outside of that. And you look at it, it hasn't been great, if that makes sense. Whereas Roman Reigns, he had that long reign. John Cena, the guy. Randy Orton could be the guy. Cody's up there, but it takes other people for him to be able to raise him.
Well, it's the age-old problem in wrestling, and that's why we see it so often. That's why the Undertaker and Stone Cold and I mean, anybody that's over and can bring a lot of us back to our childhood feelings of seeing them out there wrestling, and in WWE specifically have had different eras of how do you bring back the old favorites, understanding their age, understanding their limitations, and for years and years they'd still put them over the new up and coming talent, and it was kind of like the rub that you try to give to somebody, and then at different times now they've kind of evolved. Now a lot of it is to, okay, if I'm a legend, I'm going to go and give my name and give my name to help put somebody else over, an up and comer. But it's still hard to get that rub. I mean, we talk about kind of the new era in WWE. Even Roman Reigns is headlined like 10 straight WrestleManias or something, and not all of those have been favored with the fans at times. So it is tough as an up and comer or a current star, to kind of meet the level that industry icons like Hulk Hogan, well, not so much Hulk Hogan anymore. The Rock and John Cena certainly can provide for you.
Yeah, and you got to remember with Roman Reigns, like you said, when he won the Royal Rumble in 2016 or 17, he got booed.
Oh yeah,
they were not happy because that was supposed to be Daniel Bryan's year. Then The Rock came out, raised his hand. That was booed. Nobody liked that big dog. And a joke I'll say in here in the WWE, you're never retired because you could be 85 years old, 90. They're going to bring you back in that ring if they need somebody. So that's why, this whole John Cena retirement thing, I know he says the last time he'll be in the ring. I bet you 5-10 years, he's going to have to come back because, they're going to need another Cena match.
Yeah, we could definitely see that. I think I've watched, or at least, followed along with probably about 10 of Ric Flair's final matches.
One more match.
So, there's always another one. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a quick break as the commercials try to jump me there. But we'll go ahead and take a quick break. We'll talk about more. We didn't get too much into Raw quite yet, so we'll get into Raw and SmackDown. Coming next year on 93.7 The Ticket, this is Nuclear Heat, and we'll be right back.
Hey farmers, do you run a precision planting monitor in your planter tractor? Boyd Farm Outfitters is hosting our annual 2020 Monitor Clinic at the Holthus Center in York on Wednesday, March 19th. They'll run through everything on the monitor, from basic setup to more complex downforce settings, and everything in between. You'll learn agronomy principles behind some of the monitor settings and will leave refreshed and ready to plant. Representatives from Precision Planting will be on hand to handle any questions that you can throw at them. Visit BoykFarmOutfitters.com for all the details and to reserve your spot.
At Jimmy John's, we don't make sandwiches. We make the sandwich of sandwiches. We use fresh veggies because we don't hate salads. We just feel bad for them. We make our sandwiches exactly how you want because you're the one who's eating it. And we bake bread all day, every day, because stale bread isn't bread. It's croutons. Sandwich history is written by the victors. Good thing we have legible handwriting. Jimmy John's, the sandwich of sandwiches. Order pickup or delivery on the app.
Spring is a time of new beginnings and trying new things. If you haven't tried Furious Cheese Spread yet, the time is now. For parties for St. Patrick's Day and Easter, or celebrating the NCAA tournament with friends, there's no better dip to bring everyone together and celebrate something from Nebraska. Get to your local grocery store today and load up on Furious Cheese Spread. No event or party is complete without it on your table.
What's it take to be a mentor with big brothers, big sisters? It takes 30 minutes and a cup of coffee. A video game, best 2 out of 3. It takes sharing thumbs up emojis, clapping emojis, and loaded nachos at halftime. That's how you make an impact on a young kid's life. So go on, Share a few hours a month, because mentorship may sound huge, but the truth is, it takes little to be big. To learn more, volunteer, or donate, go to bebignow.org.
Ticket listeners know a dream team when they see one. At Applied Connective, we've been in the game for 20 years and have developed a team of world-class leaders in all things IT. From cybersecurity and Microsoft products to physical security, audio, video, infrastructure, business phone systems, and anything in between. We'll help you leverage technology to become your most secure, efficient, and profitable. Head to our website to check out real reviews and testimonials and sign up for a free tech consultation. We can show you where you might be vulnerable, inefficient, or overspending. It's a game changer, and it's totally free. Claim yours right now at appliedconnective.com.
It may not feel like it, but planting season is on its way, and now's the time to upgrade your equipment with a late model John Deere planter from Acres Equipment. Acres has an entire lineup of John Deere planters equipped with the latest technology to ensure planting accuracy throughout your field. And to get you up and going, each planter purchased from Acres includes in-field startup support from one of our Precision Ag professionals. Warmer weather is coming soon, so don't delay. Visit your local Acres for details. Offer expires April 30th, 2025.
I'm softball player Jordy Ball, and I'm proud of my Nebraska roots, and I'm proud to be back home. And at Midwest Bank, they're proud to be your local community bank. They believe in family first, taking initiative, showing integrity, and rolling up their sleeves to support their local communities. They treat everyone like family, no matter where you're from. Whether you walk into a branch in York, Lincoln, Norfolk, or Pierce, you know you're going to be welcomed with a smile. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank.
If you're in Seward or Milford, listen up. Select Plumbing is now servicing your area with no trip charges from Lincoln. Select Plumbing works on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197. Salt Mine City is not only Lincoln's newest brewery, but they're also now serving food. Enjoy a full menu of great items daily for lunch and dinner, like their peanut butter and jelly burger with bacon and cheddar cheese, or a Reuben sandwich served on Blackstone rye bread. Don't forget their beef or chicken nachos with guacamole, sour cream, jalapenos, and more. Wash it down with one of their 12 beers on tap, including the popular Single Axle Light American Lager. Salt Mine City, now open 11 a.m. every day but Mondays at 8th and R.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket, our WWE Week in Review, and a couple, again, programming notes here from 93.7 The Ticket. If you are a wrestling fan and tuning in, go and check out the Breeze today. DP, again, had Henry O. Godwin, Mark Canterbury on a wrestler from the mid to late 90s. WWF wrestler. So very entertaining show. You can check that out again on our podcast page or YouTube page. And also look for the Outrunners coming up on 93.7 The Ticket with Adam Carricker at some point this week. It'll be Monday, Tuesday. Look out for that. Of course, Carricker on every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 11 to 1. So again, Monday or Tuesday, check out that show. As we continue to go through Monday Night Raw, we went through kind of the opening segment there. And then we had Logan Paul, who has a lot of heat with the WWE Universe and maybe more than that. But in any case, he went out there. He offered his services to The Rock. He said he'd sell his soul. And then he tried to get comedian Andrew Schultz to endorse him. Paul goes on to attack Schultz, but AJ Styles comes out and makes the save. Looks like we're headed toward Paul and Styles at WrestleMania. This was a celebrity appearance. Andrew Schultz has a Netflix thing going on right now. So considering what it was entertaining enough, I thought.
Yeah, it was. It was a little weird because, like you said, like we talked about before, it felt like AJ Styles was going to be kind of with the Braun Breaker in that. But Logan Paul, I mean, I guess that's fine. Logan Paul is still, even though I'm not a big fan of his anymore and all that stuff, and I think people are really starting to turn on him. He's still a big name, still gets a crowd, still gets a huge reaction. I mean, he's up there with Dominic Mysterio type of heat now,
Yeah.
on there with that, and he still puts on a great match. So it'd be good, for an AJ Styles Logan Paul thing. And I thought Andrew Schultz, I thought he did great. I thought that was fun. I think he's funny, anyways. I watched some of his things. He's great on there with that. So yeah, I guess we'll just have to see, what more the stakes are other than they don't like each other.
Yeah. They've got a little bit of work to do, but Paul and Styles at WrestleMania certainly could work. Then we had the Tornado Tag match between Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee and the New Day. Interesting in that this match was interrupted by a masked man, was it Chad Gable, who attacked Mysterio, and New Day capitalizes to get the win. Later in the night, we saw Chad Gable trying to say it wasn't him in an interview, and then the masked man is taken out by New York security behind them. So I'll say this, it might have been silly, but I'm interested to see where they go with it next.
Oh, this was hilarious because I knew they were going to do that before, they even showed the other guy. Because when the masked luchador goes in there and interrupts the match and all that, Chad Gable's build looks like Chad Gable.
Yeah,
does the everything on there, just doesn't say it, and then runs away, and then they have that guy. Yeah, this is comedy. This is greatness. I'm going to tell you this though, it's hilarious. But if after all that, his whole trip through Mexico, you're telling me in the box was just a mask for him, I'm gonna be a little disappointed in that. It's gonna be funny, but I'm gonna be a little disappointed for all that build up.
Yeah, remember that he did go because he listened to Dom Mysterio, who knows how to defeat luchadors, and Chad Gable's had problems with luchadors. He went to Mexico to get something. He got something in the box that appears to have been a mask, but I don't know. It's interesting to say the least where this goes. The only problem I guess I have with this is that we did spend a lot of time setting up Mysterio and New Day, and we said at one time, that'd be great kind of for their heat that they have on them to kind of get one on over on Mysterio, because the crowd generally doesn't like that. They cheer for Mysterio. And so it just feels like, even though they went with that route, they didn't quite pull it off.
Yeah.
I don't know if the New Day has as much heat on them as they had previously, even though they get the win.
Yeah, they need to do something else, to kind of get that heat back on them. Like you said, they were kind of hot going down there. Be interesting to see. We're, like we said, we're 4 weeks away from WrestleMania. I think all these guys we're talking about, except for Dragon Lee, Dragon Lee, need to kind of be in something for WrestleMania.
Yeah,
they deserved it.
Definitely could see it, or we could see one of the winners of the Andre among these groups. We will wait and see. My favorite part of WrestleMania season. Dominic Mysterio then informs Finn Balor that he's got an Intercontinental Championship match lined up with Braun Breaker. So this was something. Finn Balor was kind of pouting, and then Dominic set this up for him. But it does appear that Mysterio and Morgan are up to something. Maybe a turn on Finn Balor coming soon from Judgment Day.
Yeah, when he gave him that hug and the way they were kind of just talking, it feels like they're gonna boot him for somebody else there. I'll say this. My dream fantasy booking of it all would be Finn somehow upsets Braun Breaker, wins a title. I know that's not great. And then they have to kind of second guess about turning on him. They're like, we were going, and then it kind of unravels to they were going to turn on him, but because he's champ, they're like, we got to keep him around. And then that kind of becomes its own storyline. I think that'd be fun.
Well, it's kind of interesting too, if they ultimately do turn on him. Obviously all the original members of Judgment Day and kind of chronological order are being taken out. So I think that would kind of be the story that you're telling. But that being said, you kind of get into a dangerous territory when you have a group that doesn't have any of its original members. Kind of dealing with that with the Bloodline, part 2 as well. So that's kind of interesting. But those are two groups that have stayed alive and been a big part of WWE programming the last couple of years. So kind of love those factions and interested to see what happens next there. Cody Rhodes has a promo. Both his promos this week. There was one on SmackDown where he came and kicked The Miz and kind of went straight to the point of challenging John Cena. And this one here on Raw, he says, "I'm the captain now."
Yep. I mean, it's great. I'm really looking forward to. We're gonna have to see how we do it tomorrow, Jake, because we don't get to watch it live. But
right.
we'll see there. I'm really excited because you got John Cena coming back, and I want this conference. This is why they did what they did, and they turned John Cena heel, because Cody, we know, can deliver. John Cena's been a bad guy in a couple movies, so everybody's like, this is how I'm very excited to see what heel Cena is going to be like.
I think that's the big question, and we should figure that out tomorrow night. Then we had Bayley and Raquel Rodriguez. This was for the Intercontinental Championship shot on the line. Of course, Lyra Valkyria, the Intercontinental Champion. Rodriguez wins with the help of Liv and Dirty Dom. We've said before the Intercontinental Championship could have probably used a Bayley. Bayley doesn't get the pick here. It's Raquel Rodriguez. Could this save Raquel Rodriguez's character who feels a little bland? Or do you think I think a loss to Lyra Valkyria is on the way?
I mean, I think a loss to Lyra is probably on the way. I think we've said it. Raquel hasn't been great for her since she's come back. She's kind of just been a sacrificial lamb for everything. I don't know. I don't think she's really that over, and she's really sloppy in the ring too. That's the problem, is she's not great on there. So I don't know. I mean, we've talked about it. They're kind of just fumbling the bag with the Intercontinental Championship. If they are going to try to, the kick Finn Balor out of the New Day or a Judgment Day and go the route, having another, I know they got the tag champs, but having Raquel be the Intercontinental champ there might help them a little bit more with their credibility.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with those tag champions too. But rarely do you have a tag champion and a singles belt, so that might not be good for Raquel Rodriguez's math in winning that Intercontinental Championship. Then we had, I thought this was great, Io Sky interview with Michael Cole. Out comes Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. They are heated. They're at each other, and they're almost just kind of not paying attention to Io Sky. Well, by the end of the bickering, they are, because Io Sky slaps the heck out of both of them. And so just kind of really, again, this was really good programming to get you ready for WrestleMania. We kind of knew it was probably going to head into a three-way. How do you make it kind of interesting? You have to, the only, downside of this is you have to kind of put a shadow over your champion, right?
Yeah.
Kind of have her be the underdog. So I don't know if you always love that necessarily, but it is what it is. She's not of the stature of the other women. So I thought it was a very good way to get this going.
Oh, I loved it. I love the tantrum she said when she's like, "I'm the champion, I matter," and everybody's just in shock, and she's literally throwing a tantrum in the middle of the ring. I love it because just let Io Sky be that way. Just, hey, I'm the champ. I know Rhea and Bianca, like you said, are really popular, but she's holding it. So I think they're going to do great with the storyline. I no longer doubt it.
Yeah, and so I mean, I get it. Again, I think that was part of the idea of putting the championship on her. Maybe can raise them up to their level and make you kind of feel like you got an interesting three-way battle there. I still probably would have avoided. I would have just had Rhea keep the title to keep it going. But I do get the reason why they did what they did. Then we had the steel cage match. We talked about this quite a bit earlier, so we don't need to dive too deep into it. But this was basically CM Punk and Seth Rollins, GTSs and stomps left and right. I mean, this was a hard-fought battle, and they told the story that neither of them really cared to win. They were trying to really put the other out because both of them could have won in certain points just walking out of the side of the cage, which they need to take that. I don't know. I never understood why that was an option to win a cage match. But in any case, ultimately Roman Reigns shows up and drags Seth Rollins out of the ring, causing a disqualification. So, or causing Rollins to win, with his feet hitting the floor. And then, that was interesting enough. He was beating down Rollins, and then he saw his wise man consoling CM Punk in the ring, and so he goes after CM Punk. Of course, what makes this all interesting, other than obviously that they're heading toward a three-way battle at WrestleMania, is that Paul Heyman owes CM Punk a favor, and so we could see that being cashed in at some point during this feud as well. But Reigns felt like a character that didn't necessarily need to be in this three-way battle. Like I've said before, now there's a lot of context and just kind of interesting storylines you can push with Paul Heyman involved. Paul Heyman, good cinema. So it brings it kind of back together. So I love where they're heading with this.
I think it was phenomenal. Really great segment in there. When I first thought, I was like, who's he going to go after? Right. And got to remember CM Punk also eliminated Roman Reigns from the Royal Rumble. So they already had something there. Hey, make it a triple threat for Paul Heyman.
For Paul Heyman.
I mean, why not?
Seth Rollins
Why not?
Paul Heyman too?
Why not? I mean, Paul Heyman's great. He's not a wrestler, but the way he talks, just everything he delivers, the promo he delivered on Friday by himself, I thought that was phenomenal too. That's really hyping up everything that's going on here on there. So, I mean, you could do something fun like that, but when Roman was about to curb stomp Rollins onto those the steel steps, I was like, this is getting interesting. And then, of course, security team comes in and does their thing, every week, every 2 weeks, twice a show. But yeah, I thought it was a great way for Raw to go off the air there.
Yeah, it was really good and made you look forward to what we'll see, of course, tomorrow night for Monday Night Raw. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we will talk about SmackDown, which was from Barcelona this week. I thought they laid some more groundwork for WrestleMania here as well. We'll talk about that coming next year on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
Nebraska Veterans Aid is here for veterans and dependents facing unforeseen financial emergencies. Get assistance with food, fuel, shelter, clothing, transportation, and even funeral and medical expenses. If you're a veteran facing a financial emergency, apply for Nebraska Veterans Aid through your county veteran service officer. Learn more at veterans.nebraska.gov/NVA. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Wrestling fans, it's time to elevate your game, just like Stevens & Smith Construction does for your concrete needs. As your full-service concrete contractor, we deliver solid results every time. From singles to doubles, fighting for inside position to scrambling reversals, we know how to pin down quality and slam expectations. Stevens & Smith Construction, a proud sponsor of Takedown Tuesdays on 93.7 The Ticket, where Husker wrestlers bring you all the action. Don't stall. Stevens & Smith Construction is here to help you build a concrete foundation for the win. Check us out at www.stevensandsmith.com because stalling is a penalty and winning is the only option.
Every home is different. Every family is different. So when it's time for a new heating and cooling system, why not get what fits you best? Get the perfect fit with Bryant. Maybe you need higher efficiency, better humidity control, increased warranty, or all the bells and whistles. Bryant provides options in warranty, features, comfort, and efficiency while maximizing savings. Call Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing, 467-1111, or visit BryantLincoln.com. Bryant, whatever it takes.
Mike, the insurance company wants us to replace the roof.
Wait, what? I thought everything was fine.
Yeah, it says right here our roof is too old and they won't be able to cover us anymore.
I guess it is 15 years old. Hi, I'm Austin with Roofing Service Company. We help homeowners with their roofing and siding projects. Financing options are available, and we can get you under a new roof no time at all. If this sounds like you, visit roofingservicecompany.com. That is roofingservicecompany.com.
A lot of businesses say they're family focused, but when tough situations in life arise, the business wants anything but your best interests. James Enterprise Incorporated is hiring, and they will always treat their employees like family, just as they do their customers. James Enterprise Incorporated is hiring Class A and B CDL drivers, a shop tech, and a diesel mechanic. If you're looking for a career with a company that goes above and beyond to value you and your family, apply today at jamesenterpriseinc.com or call 402-432-6740.
Things that impair you come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are the shape of beer and liquor bottles. Others look like cigarettes but aren't cigarettes at all. These are the things we know impair us, the things our parents warned us about. What we're not always aware of is our new prescription or the over-the-counter medicine we picked up just for allergies or a bad cold. See, it doesn't just matter how much of a substance you take. If you are impaired, driving is deceptively dangerous. Don't drive impaired. Paid for by the NDOT Highway Safety Office.
If you want to make new floor shopping easier, come to O Street Carpet. Hi, I'm Steve Carper. Our flooring professionals can help you choose the best flooring for you, your family, and your budget. We eliminate the confusion. Even better, you'll be enjoying your new flooring much sooner. No 6 or 8 week waits. We'll install right away and save you money on installation. Floor shopping made easy every day at O Street Carpet. O Street Carpet. 1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at pahlincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion for happier, healthier, furry friends.
Prashawn Jackson here for Bauer Underground, who has been serving local contractors and utility contractors all across the state since 1997. When you see the black and white trucks, you know the baddest dudes in the business have arrived. Bauer is currently looking for equipment operators, laborers, diesel mechanics, and aerial linemen. Join the brotherhood built on hard work, authentic people, and pedigree of success. Bauer, a family-friendly company who reminds you, go Big Red!
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Yes, that is right. We're back on Nuclear Heat here on 93.7 The Ticket, our WWE Week in Review show. We just went through Raw. Now let's get to SmackDown, which again was in Barcelona this past week. LA Knight opened up the show only for Jimmy Uso to come out and say that he wants to challenge Knight because he sees it as his path to WrestleMania. Before Jimmy Uso and LA Knight could really get anything going, Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga arrive. Braun Strowman has to come out to even the odds. And then Nick Aldis says, you know what? This looks like these three could battle these three, and we'll do that right now. So they have that battle. Ultimately, the six-man tag match ends in Strowman power slamming Tonga for the win, but the bloodline attack afterwards, and the segment ends with Jacob Fatu putting Braun through the barricade. So kind of one of those deals, kind of lets you know what LA Knight and Jimmy Uso are potentially thinking here. Furthers a little bit more with the bloodline. Most importantly, and kind of interesting, still not necessarily sure who LA Knight's going to be going up against, but Fatu and Braun Strowman continue to kind of have their feud building up. So that was the big deal here. I don't always love one team wins, one post-match beatdown, because it kind of takes it like, what did we just watch here? It's like watching a tie in the NFL, the overtime games or something. But this was effective enough.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun little segment to kind of get, the big names, like you said, they're overseas, so that you kind of got to get all your big names in the show there. So it's good. I am a little worried because LA Knights. It looks like they'll have some competitors at least for him outside of Shinsuke, which is good. No offense to Shinsuke, that can't be LA Knight's guy going into WrestleMania. So I thought this was fun, and it really, I'm kind of glad because it does look like it's going to be Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu, where we were kind of worried they were kind of going to push a solo Jacob for WrestleMania, and I don't think this is the right time for that.
Yeah, it does look like they're coming off solo a little bit, which they just wouldn't do for a year and a half. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting to see what's coming up next for him. Was always very good, kind of as the quiet guy in the background of the bloodline, kind of the Punisher there. Has been good, I think, with some comedy bits, but obviously just the super push that he was given and was able to beat like everybody in the company just felt really forced. And so now it looks like they're coming to the conclusion everybody else said as soon as Jacob Fatu arrived. Hey, he outshined Solo Sikoa quite a bit in that group.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, he can essentially be Jacob Fatu's wise man, right? His enforcer and his wise man. Whereas, he's great on the mic now. He's not horrible, and things like that. He's just not necessarily superstar level, but you have him as kind of like you said when he first came on, that enforcer, the kind of the guy in the background, maybe Jacob's mouthpiece a little bit on that. I think that'd be a great role for him.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Tama Tonga takes the pin.
Yeah,
they're just not loving our boy Tama Tonga.
No, they're not. But hey, he's getting TV time right now.
That's right.
He was MIA for like 3 weeks there, so I'm glad they brought him back.
He's at least doing it. They're not even giving him lines, though. That's the problem. They always close out the segments with him just like looking at one of them, and that's it. Well, hopefully they see what we see in Tama Tonga. Jade Cargill's interview up next was interrupted by Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, kind of setting up a match for this next week. So that should be pretty good. I mean, that's as good as you can get Jade Cargill and Liv.
I thought this is a great segment. We talked about it. Liv Morgan, we were kind of, it's getting stale with her and Rhea, but man, she's really shining without that championship. She's not wrong. She's like, hey, Jade, who attacked you and you let them come after me. She's got a legitimate beef against Jade Cargill now.
Yeah, I feel like Liv, you can just kind of throw her anywhere right now and just spice anything up. Which is a good spot to be.
Yeah, and I mean, because she has the tag team champs and they haven't done a great job with those. So it's coming to WrestleMania season. You got to find her somewhere.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, we've talked about it before at length and we need to move on, but her Judgment Day era could have been a disaster and maybe it's not as hot as when Rhea Ripley, like the Judgment Day group isn't as good, but Liv Morgan's character, I feel like, has taken a step up since joining Judgment Day individually. Agreed. So kind of interesting to work around there. We had B-Fab against Charlotte. Of course, this was kind of the story was the veteran against the rookie here, and it kind of looked that way in the ring at certain times. No offense to B-Fab there. But Charlotte ends up winning this. It wouldn't let go of the figure eight. Then we had Tiffany Stratton come out. with about 50, 75 other security guards. No, it wasn't that many, but it did feel like 20 security guards out there. I didn't like the fact that they didn't build it up. They just kind of quickly had 20 security guards breaking them up, and they couldn't bring up Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte. They'd keep getting to each other, which was good throughout the show. They do these brawls. They were still brawling later on. Tiffany jumps off the Tron. You kind of have your moment. I mean, that's great for highlight packages leading up to WrestleMania. So not a whole lot of like story and talking heating up Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton. And we didn't feel like Charlotte standing over Tiffany Stratton the last couple of weeks was really heating up either. I'm not a huge fan of brawls in every feud, but it seemed to work here to heat the storyline up. And a lot of it, again, is just these two are great athletes. Let them go do athletic things and people will get into it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They're two of the most athletic. I feel, though, like after watching Charlotte with BFAB, she's maybe lost a little bit of a step, it looked like. I don't know if you could kind of see that. A little bit of ring rust after not being in there for about a year.
Could be. I think BFAB also factored into that.
Yeah. Not she did not look great. We'll just say that, BFAB. I'm glad you're still around, but she needs to put some work in there. But I agree. It was fun. That spot was great. I think this heats it back up. And for me, this is the ultimate. Tiffy is the baby face. Charlotte is the heel, right? It's got to be that way. And then I did see on Twitter that I think that Charlotte called her like a Temu champion knockoff or something like that. That's they're really doing it. So I'm a little bit more invested in this. And if they can keep this up for the next 4 weeks, I think it'll be just fine.
A little bit later on, we had Cody Rhodes, Big Time Miz TV. We already talked about that. Shinsuke against Damian Priest. Drew McIntyre shows up to distract Priest. And McIntyre eventually attacks Priest, who was getting the upper hand on Shinsuke. Nakamura didn't leave without Kinshasa to the back of Priest's head, just for good measure. And then Drew said, you know what, let's add a Claymore here at the end. So kind of interesting. Obviously, Damian Priest and Drew are headed toward WrestleMania together. Shinsuke, that Kinshasa maybe would say that he might be sticking around in this feud too.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't need him in this one. This is one you absolutely don't need him in, but you have nothing for Shinsuke now. And I think people are already saying that Drew Priest kind of feels weird.
Forced.
Yeah, it feels very forced. And now you add in Shinsuke possibly. That's not great for it. And we talked about it. Damian, former champion. Drew, former champion. Shinsuke, close, on there. But, Damian and Drew are kind of up here. They were just in Elimination Chamber, all that. Shinsuke's kind of at the bottom. This really doesn't make sense if they add him to that.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think they will. I think they're just kind of keeping his heel character there with that Kinshasa. But it was interesting. It made it kind of interesting there for a second. But I do agree with you altogether. It's like they've got Priest and McIntyre hating each other and going after each other, but it does feel a little bit forced. Feels like they need to get something going in there. Next up, we had Carmelo Hayes and Randy Orton. Orton wins with an RK out of nowhere. Then after the match, Carmelo Hayes denies a handshake. Orton goes ahead and gives him another RKO, then lines him up for the punt, which he's lining everybody up for the punt. I thought he was supposed to be like the blood feud, so I would have rather him not line everybody up for a punt and not hit it on anybody for his first 3 times or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they go that route. KO shows up and the chase is on. Randy Orton has to chase Kevin Owens. I also have a problem with Kevin Owens showing up all the time because he's done it so much and they don't do anything. They always just kind of run him off or get the better of him. It doesn't feel like his kind of surprise appearances are very effective anymore.
No, not really. They just I don't know. This is such a great feud, right? It's got something behind it. But it just feels a little off on there, right? As in they haven't really had their confrontation. They have their little brawls and things and they've called each other out, but they haven't had their thing. Just have them kind of come out at the end and not really do much it's not great.
It was definitely a filler week for that feud.
Yep.
And Orton fighting again at any time is great. Is fun, but I just don't. You just lose effectiveness at some point when Kevin Owens always shows up and doesn't really do anything. Gunther versus Axiom. We talked about this earlier. Axiom from NXT, also from Spain, so they had the hometown crowd with them. Had survived several power bombs and did some aerial attacks. Looked pretty cool, but eventually gives in to a powerful power bomb there. And then wrapping up the show, DIY and the Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins win just their second title, which is kind of crazy. in WWE as tag team champions in the first, and I think it was 4 years.
Yeah.
But still kind of a jumbled mess there in my mind. Street Profits, are they heels? Are they not? They also ran into Legado del Fantasma in the back earlier in the show. Pretty Deadly is the number one contender. We've had several different champions, so I think they've been a good job of maybe keeping it somewhat interesting. But this was not to close out the show in my mind. This kind of it's kind of made you go home just kind of not as hot as maybe you were early in the night.
Yeah, no, not at all. And we talked about it. It's hard because you have legitimate tag teams, right, that you want to build up, but sometimes it does have to be that those two single stars kind of tagging up, because this just feels a little weird. I mean, Pretty Deadly, they're a comedy act, they're not anything like that. And then another weird thing is, oh my goodness, who just won?
Motor City Machine Guns or DIY? Pretty Deadly.
The champs.
There's all of them.
Street Profits. Wow,
Yeah.
Wow, biggest brain fart. The Street Profits, they were heels. It kind of feels like they're babyface again after kind of how at the end of it, and that just doesn't. I wanted to see them as heels,
which they were kind of heelish because they were attacking everybody again. But when you have them against DIY, who's the heels?
Yeah,
it's just kind of confusing stuff even for the crowd to say who are we cheering for.
Yeah.
So, a little bit to work on there in the tag team division. But that'll wrap it up for Nuclear Heat tonight. Join us next week again for some more wrestling talk as we lead up to WrestleMania. We'll see you tomorrow morning for 93.7 The Ticket program.
Empower a child today with the Teammates